Marcel, where are you going with that disc? You are not putting that on again. Marcel, okay, if you press that button, you are in very, very big trouble.
Attention. Everybody stop what you're doing. It's time for The Unwritten Rule, a Mizzou sports podcast brought to you by the Believe Network, alongside Payton Haverman and Kenny Van Doren. Here is your host, Jack Knowlton.
Welcome back to The Unwritten Rule. Today is Friday, December 27th, recording here on Boxing Day. I hope everyone enjoyed their Christmas, their start to Hanukkah or Kwanzaa, whatever you celebrate out there. Very thankful for everyone who's continued to listen to us and continue to support us. And of course, we wanted to continue to provide some content going into this weekend if you have some days off from work. And no better thing to look at than the depth chart for the Music City Bowl versus the Missouri Tigers and the Iowa Hawkeyes. Of course, it's going to be on Monday, December 30th. But we're going to take an early look at this depth chart before we do our preview for Monday's show. And you're going to look at it right now. If you're watching with us on the YouTube, you see this depth chart. It looks completely different. You know, even with a team that really didn't lose too many guys to the transfer portal that were starters, it's still going to look a little bit different. And I think a good place to just start is with that offensive line, considering it is at the top there. Payton, from left to right, I'll just call him out and you tell me what you're feeling about it. But only one real change, and that's at right tackle. But left tackle, Marcus Bryant; left guard, Caden Green; center, Drake Heismeyer took over there for the last couple games. And Connor Tollison went down with a season-ending knee injury. Cameron Johnson at right guard, and then Mitchell Walters, who's been a plug-in guy these last couple years, will get the start at right tackle for his final collegiate game. I mean, looking at that, and you can talk about the two deep as well. Payton, what are some of your takeaways about the offensive line going into the bowl game?
Yeah, I've never been a big Mitchell Walters at tackle guy. If you know, you know. 2022 was not his finest hour. But no, like you mentioned, or maybe just kind of alluded to, I think the more interesting things here to look at is kind of the two deep, because I mean, now you have Brandon Solis breaking into the two deep this is almost certainly the first time we've seen his name on the depth chart. So that's kind of a big deal. I mean, he was kind of an afterthought late signing guy in, I think it was 2022, if I'm correct. Definitely not one that was super highly rated or anything like that. So to see him be able to work into that is very encouraging. Logan Reichert, you see him, I think he might just be a straight guard at this point. 6'6", 342. You'd kind of hope he'd maybe be a tackle, but it kind of looks like he's just slotting in at guard going forward. Left tackle is interesting because Javen Richardson, as of now, I mean, assuming there's no other transfer additions or anything like that, would be your starter at left tackle. At right tackle, Mizzou picked up the Wake Forest transfer whose name is totally escaping me, Kenny. But
Keegan Trost.
Yeah. Keegan Trost. They got Gedice, or Giudici, I believe is actually how it's pronounced because it's Italian. So Giudici, the Michigan transfer, will probably take that right guard spot. So maybe you see Curtis Piegler maybe float around somewhere else. Maybe he could be that sixth guy because he's a guy that I feel like we've heard a ton about now. Tristan Wilson, I mean, he's kind of that next man up at center if Tollison's not healthy, or maybe that is Giudici and you figure something else out at right guard. But overall, probably not a ton you can pull away in regards to next year for the O-line depth chart here. Maybe the only notables being Javen Richardson still being kind of that second guy at left tackle, especially because of the new JUCO ruling. He has an extra year of eligibility now, potentially. So it'll be interesting to see how they handle left tackle going forward.
And yeah, it's interesting too, looking at that center spot with Talon Chandler, who's going to get his red shirt for the season. And he was a late addition into that class of 2024. They flipped him from Colorado. He always wanted to stay home in the state of Missouri. So he's another center option moving forward. Still a little bit smaller at 291, 6'2", but still room to grow over these next couple seasons. Moving into the pass catcher roles, of course, no Brett Norfleet in this one. Had successful surgery. Will miss this game on his shoulder. We know he's battling some injuries early on in the season, playing through them. Got the OR designation, though, between those two tight ends, who are the backups primarily this year, and Jordan Harris, who's been a very strong blocker in his second year with the Tigers. And then Tyler Stevens, who's a graduate in his final year, coming over from Buffalo. Not expecting too much from the tight ends. I'll be quite honest. Maybe you see Jordan Harris or Tyler Stevens get a big pickup, but into this final game of the season, I think you're looking more to these wide receivers.
Definitely. And I mean, this is a huge proving ground for a guy like Josh Manning, who's really going to be that second receiver opposite of Theo Weiss. I expect a pretty healthy dosage of Theo Weiss in this one. I don't expect a ton from the tight ends in this one, to be honest. Neither one of Tyler Stevens or Jordan Harris are renowned for their receiving ability, really. They're both more guys that you rely upon for blocking downs. But Marquise Johnson, he'll kind of have to, it'll be a big one for him as well. Maybe he can prove he's not just a guy that you use to take the top off a defense. Can he go out there and maybe play a bit of receiver? Also it's kind of funny to see Logan Muckey there on the depth chart. Definitely never thought I'd see that. But that's just kind of what it is. And it kind of sucks that Courtney Crutchfield isn't in the fold anymore, because this is a game I'd like to see a good amount of him in, but is what it is. Hopefully one of these younger guys like Daniel Blood or Josh Manning or Marquise Johnson can kind of step up.
And looking, reading out that too deep as well, Marquise Johnson, Josh Manning, and Theo Weiss are going to be the starters in this game, with Luther Burden declaring for the NFL draft and Mookie Cooper suffering that season-ending injury. And we actually don't really know when it was, but he last played in the Auburn game, was out those couple weeks, then had surgery. So those are the three, and behind them is James Madison, Logan Muckey, and Daniel Blood, respectively. Kind of looking at who you have for next season as well. Kevin Coleman Jr. coming in from Mississippi State, and then probably some other guys moving up behind them, but definitely some big game for Josh Manning in this one, just to see what he can prove and as a regular starter like he has been these past couple weeks. Quarterback position, no changes. Brady Koch will be the starter in this one, and Drew Pine right behind him. Drew Pine still has that 1 year of eligibility next season. At the running back position, Nate Noel and Marcus Carroll still have the OR designation between them as the two primary backs in this game. Both are in their final game as college backs. And then behind them, Jamal Roberts and a familiar face who's been on here before, and Tavoris Jones, who hasn't been on the depth chart all season, is back on there with Kawan Lacey entering the transfer portal and signing with Ole Miss. I'm not expecting anything from T-Man in this one. Definitely was a guy that I thought maybe could take that step forward as someone for next year. And as of right now, he's still with the Tigers, so still probably going to be on that depth chart next year. Let's look at the defensive line real quick. Still got that OR designation. I think it's been there for a little while at one of these edge positions with Zion Young and Eddie Kelly, the Michigan State and Georgia Tech transfers. Played a good amount this past season. Other defensive ends still have Johnny Walker going into his final game as a Missouri Tiger with Ja'Kai Lang behind him. At the tackle spots, Chris McClellan, Christian Williams, both starters. They got Jalen Marshall, Sam Williams, Sterling Webb, and Marquise Gracial as the reserves.
Definitely cool to see Ja'Kai Lang also as kind of that next man up behind Johnny Walker, because I mean, Zion Young and Eddie Kelly, like one of them has to take the first step, but they both get starters snaps. Essentially, they just rotate in and out. Johnny Walker, obviously, his final game as a Tiger, he's the bona fide top guy. But going into next year, Zion Young and Eddie Kelly are both probably going to be two of your top guys at that edge position. And then you're going to really need someone to break out, whether that's Darius Smith, maybe it is one of Zion Young or Eddie Kelly, maybe it's Ja'Kai Lang. Someone's going to have to step up from that room, because the last few years we've had Isaiah McGuire be the top guy. We've seen Darius Robinson step in as the top edge rusher. This year we expected, and Johnny Walker did live up to be that top edge position. There's not really a guy like that next year that I think we're all 100% certain can step in and be like a bona fide dude off the edge. I think Zion Young has had a nice season, no doubt. I think he's been a perfectly adequate guy out there, but he's not someone I think I would say I'm 100% sure is going to step up and be a real edge one type. So I'm interested to see kind of what you get out of the edge rushers in this one.
And it's not like they landed someone big in the portal either, like Darius Smith last season, where didn't play this season because of that injury and early on in camp. But there is no Darius Smith coming into this next season. Nate Johnson, Lane Kitchen, I wouldn't expect the world from them. They certainly look like two guys that could probably develop into the system and see some significant snaps in their first year. But if they break on a scene, good for them. That's a perfect spot for the Tigers. But I don't think they're expecting someone like Darius Smith's caliber to come in and do it. So it almost feels like Darius Smith is that addition to the transfer portal because he didn't play this season. Probably going to get that medical red shirt and opportunity to stick around for an extra year in college football. So that's definitely going to be a big boost at that defensive end position in 2025. Looking at the linebackers, this one's a little bit interesting. Tristan Newsom, who could be in his last game as a Missouri Tiger, could not be. Could be in a game with another team, or could play next season somewhere else because he is a JUCO transfer, and because of the changing in the rules after the Diego Pavia saga, there is an opportunity for him to come back. So he's at the linebacker position with Corey Flagg. In the two deep is Nick Rodriguez, Jeremiah Beasley, and then Brian Huff right behind Corey Flagg Jr. And I feel like Jeremiah Beasley and Brian Huff were two guys we talked about, yet even Nick Rodriguez in one of our most recent shows, this guy's the linebacker position that are contributing as true freshmen and should be, taking an extra step forward next year, especially Nick Rodriguez, who's seen significant snaps.
Yeah, it's interesting, this linebacker position, because it almost feels like there was a logjam going into this season, and it kind of feels like a similar thing next year as well. Khalil Jacobs will be back. Tristan Newsom now has an extra year of eligibility, but before that ruling came down, I mean, Mizzou added two guys at linebacker in Bayer from Nebraska and Trotter from West Virginia. And Bayer maybe plays more of a outside linebacker, kind of maybe that he could be a guy maybe you look at for that for the what essentially is the I'm blanking on the position
Jack
there, but what we thought that Darius Smith would be this year. So
Joker.
it's kind of the Joker role. It's kind of interesting to see what they'll do here. I almost wonder if they maybe tell Tristan Newsom to maybe look elsewhere, not just because I don't want him, but just because there's so many other guys he's going to have to compete with it. It'll be interesting to see. And then, like you said, they have so many other guys that they seem to be so down. Nick played a ton this year. Easily is a big time addition, a guy that they clearly like. And then there's Brian Huff as well.
And looking at the secondary now, not too many changes here. I mean, really at all. Of course, Philip Roche, who left the program before that final week of the season, entered the transfer portal. But looking at the safeties, of course, you have Joseph Charleston starting. But there is that or designation between Travis Johnson, which I haven't seen before. And one of those safety spots, Marvin Burks, of course, at the other safety, Dalen Carnell at the star position, Drayden Norwood and Toriano Pride is your starting corners, but there is that or designation still between Toriano Pride and Nicholas DeLoach Jr. Behind some of these safeties are Trajan Greco, Caleb Flagg, Sidney Williams, Travis Johnson, Joseph Charleston, Sidney Williams, all will not be returning next season, kind of prompting the Tigers to look to the transfer portal, getting Santana Banner and Mose Phillips III from Virginia Tech and Santana Banner from Northern Illinois. Still some guys out there that might be looking at to revamp the secondary, but even behind some of those corners, Jamarian Wayne, who's been around this program for quite a amount of time right now as a backup, will switch from receiver to safety, the corner. He's been around the block with this program. And Cameron Keys, who's a freshman, looking to probably contribute here in the next two seasons. But Payton, initially from you, I mean, just thoughts on what the secondary looks like for the bowl game.
Well, I mean, it was a shaky position group in general. Just pretty much every one of these positions outside of Dalen Carnell was kind of shaky at times throughout the year, and I don't have much reason to believe that the corner room is going to be much better next year because, I mean, yes, they'll have Dre Norwood back. Hopefully he can maybe take another step forward after getting a full year, really, of being a CB1. But, I mean, Toriano Pride and Nick DeLoach really struggled at times this year. I'm not a fan of the fact that Missouri has not prioritized corner in the portal. They have not brought in – they haven't gotten a commitment from anyone they've brought in. So that makes me a little nervous because, I mean, Jamarian Wayne has played 4 different positions now, and he's your top reserve. Cameron Keys is a freshman. Senzabaw's not even on the depth chart yet. It's just a shaky position group. I do like the additions they've made at safety. I do kind of hope we see a little bit of John Greco here. This can be play big snaps at times throughout the year. Caleb Flagg has been someone we've seen more of, as Marvin Burks has really kind of been kind of really up and down. It'll be good. Hopefully they have Dalen Carnell back next year. I think that's what kind of everyone is expecting at this point in time. That's good for them. But outside of that, I think that's going to, again, be maybe one of the bigger question mark groups on the roster.
And I'll throw a name out there, too, that maybe the Tigers are still looking at in Stephen Hall, who's a transfer cornerback from Washington State. He has experience at the JUCO level, too, so he might get an extra year of eligibility in there. But cornerback there, he was teammates with Adrian Wilson, who the Tigers hosted this past weekend before the dead period. But he ended up committing to Arizona State. Tigers already have 2 safeties, but corner depth is certainly something that maybe we should expect just to see someone come in. Also, not seeing on the depth chart here is Marcus Carroll. He did declare for the NFL draft, say he was going to go there, but in the press conference, he wasn't a name that Eli Drinkwitz mentioned as someone who was going to be out for this game. Looking at that linebacker position as well, Chuck Hicks is not on there as well. He just opted out. Said on Twitter he just wanted to spend time with his wife and his kid. Very, very strong approach to just put that out there, because I feel like some people are very upset with some of the flags he received in those final 2 games of the season. Special teams. This is the best one. Luke Bauer is the only punter left on the roster. Will Saffris and Ryan Phillips. Ryan Phillips both entered the transfer portal. Ryan Phillips ended up at Utah, and Will Saffris ended up at Utah State. So the Tigers will only have 1 punter in this game. Of course, they did add the Stanford transfer punter for the 2025 season, and expecting them to add a preferred walk-on either in the second transfer window or just in the coming months, just with a high schooler at some sort. Place kicker-wise, Blake Craig will be the starting kicker in this one, but Nick Quadrini is back. He announced that he was entering the portal. Checked a couple days ago. That announcement was deleted. He's officially back on the roster, back on the team website, and has a Tiger back in his bio. So he's a guy who looks like he'll be sticking around. Tigers made a run at Steven Rusnick, the Charlotte transfer, but he ended up at Cincinnati. It looked like he was going to be some competition with Blake Craig, but probably a better opportunity there for him. Holder position, Luke Bauer, Brady Cook, or designation. Long snapper, Brett LeBlanc missed the final game of the season. He was out on the injury report, on the availability report. Maybe we'll see something if there's an update there, but he's going to take punts, and Trey Flint will take field goals and extra points, just how it's been the whole season. Punt returners or designation between Daniel Blood and Theo Weiss Jr. I fully expect we'll just see Daniel Blood back there. And kickoff returns, Marquise Johnson will be back there. He missed a couple earlier in the season due to some injuries, but back in his role these past couple of weeks and months.
I'm really glad they have Nick Quadrini back. That's awesome. It sounds like Blake Craig is going to be the unquestioned starter again, which I don't agree with at all, but that is what it is. How does Nick Quadrini not have a red shirt? How is he a true sophomore?
I think there's sometimes you see this with walk-ons where they don't claim the red shirt. There was even the Stanford kicker or Stanford punter that Missouri landed. I was looking at his website or his profile on Stanford. It was like, he could have claimed a red shirt, but he just didn't. I think that just kind of happens sometimes with guys that are preferred walk-ons that know they won't be here for too long, don't need that extra wrinkle or extra eligibility year. And that punter is Connor Wesselman. Sorry for not saying his name, but I just think it's one of those things that they just don't claim it.
Okay, that makes sense. That's my only question. I don't want to talk about special teams anymore.
But that's going to do it for our just look at the depth chart for the Music City Bowl, which is on Monday. And of course, we will get you as soon as we can. I mean, these episodes drop at midnight the day of, but we will get a preview on that Monday if you need anything to listen to on your way to the bowl game. If you're tailgating, listening to our sweet, soothing voices, and hopefully Jack will be back on the mic with us then. But we'll finish off the show with quick hits. All right, quick hits time. This is a tough one doing Jersey of the Week. I always try to get some Mizzou connection, and this one really sucks for two basketball fans and just guys that respect the sport a lot. And Peyton and I, we loved watching Drew Smith there in his final season, just what he kind of brought to college basketball, and as one of the better guys in the SEC in his final year. But this comes from Shams. On ESPN or from ESPN, Miami Heat guard Drew Smith has suffered a season-ending torn Achilles tendon, sources told ESPN. Absolutely devastating after the two-way guard made a tremendous recovery from a torn ACL just over a year ago to the Heat's rotation now and was on the cusp of a standard NBA contract. It seemed like he was having a great year. Heat fans were really coming around to liking Drew Smith on that team. And I'm not going to post the video or show the video. It is a pretty brutal one. Just took a step and it just blew. It's just one of those things where pretty uncontrollable. He had that ACL injury, which is also just kind of like a fluke one. He was trying to block a shot and just fell right into the bench, and his foot just fell right like through the floor almost. I remember a lot of people were kind of confused on like why that happened. And the floor is a little bit higher than the actual ground, and it's just brutal for Drew Smith. And you're just kind of wishing him the best.
I think what really sucks about it is that he very clearly, just from a numbers standpoint, was having his best career year. I mean, career high in minutes and in like over 19 a game, hitting over half of his shots, 53% from three-point land. He's not taking a whole ton, but he was hitting on more than half of them. Career highs in rebounds, career highs in steals, career high in points by over 6.3 a game. Was really looking like he was going to be a part of their rotation. And like you said, he was not even he was the best player in the SEC his last year at Missouri. I'm not going to shy away from that. He was absolutely better than Herb Jones. But it sucks for him. I hope he comes back strong, especially just about to get that standard contract. That's just a horrible, horrible time for him to suffer an injury like this.
You got some more positive news from Tigers in the Wild for our Jersey segment. Peyton, what's your Jersey of the week?
Yeah, at least there is this. Tyler Beatty, who had that really, really kind of scary back injury in week 4 for the Broncos. He's on his way back. The Broncos opened the 21-day practice this year. I think they're very, very close to being able to just outright clinch a playoff spot. So he could be a part of their running back room in the come playoff time. I mean, he was in that rotation, really was starting to get maybe the bulk of the carries before he got hurt, but he's on his way back now. So nobody really knew what that injury was. People weren't sure what it was, but it doesn't appear to be able to keep him out much longer. So
it seems like there's a bad trend here for some of those guys that are right on the line, right on the edge of being key contributors at the next level for Missouri graduates. So you just want to kind of hope these guys can turn it around and get back to where they were. And Tyler Beatty seems like he's taking that step in the right direction. Jack's Jersey of the week goes to another Missouri grad, and that's Michael Porter Jr. If you got an opportunity to watch some NBA basketball on Christmas, probably doesn't feel the same for people Peyton and I's age in our early to mid 20s, just how much it's changed. But Michael Porter Jr. dropped 22 points in 37 minutes for the Nuggets in a 110-100 loss to the Phoenix Suns. Performed pretty well. The plus minus was -4, but it was one of the better ones in that starting 5 in this game. Michael Porter Jr., of course, has had some buzz around his name to be traded at the deadline, maybe to Peyton's Bulls.
Yeah, that would get me to watch. But good for Michael Porter Jr. The games yesterday were actually really good. I only watched one of them. I watched the Lakers Warriors game, which was amazing, except for how it ended. But good for Michael Porter Jr. He's been a key cog in a team that's been competing for championships. So
I like no cap, and he's the main bird.
Next segment, Shawnee's main bird of the week. And my Shawnee's main bird of the week goes to Connor Bazelak. If you're listening to this, he's already played in his bowl game for Bowling Green, but of course that connection is he is a Bowling Green Falcon. But what a way for Connor Bazelak to finish out his college career. Maybe he'll be the starting quarterback for the Bears next season. The Bears surely need a new quarterback, and Connor Bazelak was SEC Freshman of the Year. That is something Caleb Williams has never done before.
You're very right. He has never done that before. Caleb Williams has never gone to 3 different colleges either. He's only gone to 2. So that's something that Connor Bazelak has more of as well. It's kind of shocking because Connor Bazelak has been in college football so long. He's like starting to appear on like all-time college leaderboards. Like he's going to be like top 30 or 40 or 50 or something in career college passing yards because he's just played that long. And now he's got one more chance against Arkansas State to go out in a blaze of glory, which is fitting because his first career start was in 2019 against Arkansas. So it's another one. It's playing a team from that state. I don't know, man.
Who's your bird of the week? Who's your main bird of the
My
week?
bird of the week is going to be Jalon Carlies, or JC Carlies, as we like to call him around Missouri. Those that may be wondering, how is that a bird connection? Because against the Tennessee Titans, this was tweeted by the Cotton Bowl Classic, by the way. The Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic tweeting the 88th Classic alum Mizzou football. J.C. Carlies recorded his first double-digit tackle effort in the Colts' Week 16 win over the Titans. And the Titans, of course, have Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley was once a Falcon. So there's your bird connection to J.C. Carlies. J.C. Carlies had double-digit tackles. He is a Cotton Bowl champion. Should have been a Cotton Bowl MVP probably if he didn't get hurt. But yeah, J.C. Carlies. Also, if you look at the photo they used, he's jacked. He's huge now. He looks exactly like a linebacker should.
I'm assuming you checked his high school mascot before this.
No.
That's not a bird. Just wanted to make sure you knew. Jack's main bird of the week is bracketology. The connection he has is Creighton will no longer be playing Missouri in the bracketology from Joe Lenardi at ESPN. Right now, the last four in are Drake, Missouri, St. Mary's, and SMU, and Creighton is in the next four out with LSU, Northwestern, and Louisville. So right now, if it ended today, Missouri would be then that last four in facing SMU.
How about that? Even after the loss to Illinois, Joe Lenardi's thinking Missouri is safe. They dropped one spot for that loss. That's the benefit of playing in the SEC. Mizzou SMU would be kind of fun. SMU is coached by Andy Enfield, who was coaching USC last year. Him leaving USC paved the way for Eric Musselman to go to USC from Arkansas, and John Calipari went to Arkansas as a result. So fun little web there. Also, Missouri in Conzo Martin's final year played and beat SMU in overtime of the Orange Bowl Classic tournament.
I wonder who Marcus Bryant would be rooting for in that game. Let's finish up.
Marcus Bryant. Who's Hiron White rooting for?
Oh, I know Hiron White. I know he's rooting for. He's rooting for SMU.
You think?
Best thing you learned this week, Payton.
Best thing I learned this week, and it's really not the best thing I learned this week because I just hate these NIL numbers being thrown out in the open. But according to Pete Nakos from On3, Penn State transfer QB Bo Perbula signed a $1.5 million NIL package with Mizzou. That's the going rate, man. That's like probably just the starting flat rate for a transfer QB. Not even in just the SEC. Probably a lot of other places in the portal. Like I'm sure some like group of five guys aren't getting 1.5 mil, but that's the cost to compete, man. And it's just an interesting number to see thrown out there in the open. Whether it is exactly 1.5 or maybe a little more, a little less, who really knows? But if you ever are wondering what the going rate is for a starting SEC QB, there you go, $1.5 million.
Can't believe Penn State couldn't afford that. That's all I got to say. Jokes aside, it is a big number, but it's always just an interesting thing. Like something that comes up is, you see people trying to fix the transfer portal, do all these hypotheticals, and they should make them, employees. If they made them employees, these numbers would be public. I mean, they would be state employees at that point. Some people want to call for more transparency. Some people just don't want that, the confidentiality of it and don't want those numbers out there. But it is always interesting when you kind of see and compare how much certain schools are paying. Even in Pete Nako's report, he mentioned it's kind of similar to what Jackson Arnold got at Auburn. So it's like that you kind of compare it to some other SEC schools, and that's what it comes down to. Best thing I learned this week, you mentioned Conzo Martin a few minutes ago, Peyton, and I'm going to come back to Conzo Martin. Pete Thamel reported today, and a lot of people were confirming it as well and posted some updates in Miami. We'll have a press conference regarding this, but Miami basketball coach Jim Larrañaga are in talks about him stepping down immediately. Clarity is expected later today, and this confirms a Miami Herald report from earlier. It's coming out on Thursday, so definitely more news once you hear it. But I quoted this on our unwritten account, the photo of Konzo Martin, and the prophecy must be fulfilled. Back in 2020, there was a report from the St. Louis Post-Dispatch that when Jim Larrañaga was thinking about stepping down and not re-signing his contract, he's actually signed until, I believe, 2026, through the 2026 season. There was a name that was popping up was Konzo Martin, who was seeing a good amount of success at Mizzou, made it to the tournament that year. He is at Missouri State right now. Fulfill the prophecy for Konzo Martin to go to Miami.
That could be probably my favorite, like, Mizzou coaching what if. There's a few in contention, like what if Mizzou hired like Blake Anderson in front of Eli? What if Konzo Martin? What if Rick Pitino came to coach the Missouri Tigers when Konzo was fired? What if Konzo went to Miami? I mean, that's such a ripple effect. I mean, Miami is 2 years removed from a Final Four run. They made it that far. Last year, they were one of the most disappointing teams in college basketball. They're horrible this year. They did have the presser already. Jim Larrañaga said he was just exhausted by this age of college basketball at this point. It's not for the faint of heart. Being a college coach it's not an enviable position in anything but the salary. But yeah, Konzo Martin, needless to say, I don't think he'll be on Miami's short list this time around.
If you want to know that record too for Miami, Miami is 4-8, 0-1 in conference in the ACC. Most recent loss was on Saturday, December 21st to Mount St. Mary's, 78-74 at home. But Missouri State, Mo State, is 0-1 in conference in the Missouri Valley right now, 7-5 overall. Konzo Martin maybe on the move.
Did you say Miami lost to Mount St. Mary's?
Yes.
Not St. Mary's, Mount St. Mary's.
Mount St. Mary's.
Oh my God. I didn't realize how bad it had gotten there.
This is our final one. Best thing Jack learned this week. If you couldn't tell, Jack isn't here. But of course, we have to talk about the NBA because, I mean, it's all he likes. The headline from ESPN: NBA's Christmas Day success going to come at a better time. I feel like a good amount of people might have seen this video too of LeBron saying in the post-game, just quick post-game conversation quickly on the court, just saying, telling the NFL Christmas Day is our day. The NFL had 2 games on Netflix. And of course, ESPN was just ran by the NBA in this game, but saw some good success in some of these games, especially that Lakers-Warriors game. That was a fun one to watch, especially near the end. It felt like the old NBA that Payton and I are accustomed to. Payton, I mean, what do you kind of make of it? It's very hard to beat out the NFL, but it seemed like NBA had a good day on Christmas.
Yeah, I doubt the viewership numbers will reflect it, but the NBA definitely was the better product yesterday. Both the football games were terrible. Sorry about your Texans, Ken Dog. But it is what it is. Certainly NBA on Christmas has a lot more cachet than NFL on Christmas. NFL has Thanksgiving, of course. But I mean, why wouldn't he say it? He's being an ambassador for his league. I don't really think viewership is like the only thing you can use to tout the NFL. Like most of the time, the NFL I think is the better product. But yesterday it was definitely not. It was the NBA's day yesterday.
Nick Bolton got a win. Michael Porter Jr. got a loss. And Missouri Tigers killer Austin Reeves won the game for the Lakers over the Warriors. So 2 strikes against Mizzou, 1 check mark. That's going to do it for quick hits. Payton, you want to close us out with a joke?
I sure do, Kenny. This one comes from our favorite TV series, The Today Show. Kenny, how does the rancher keep track of his cattle?
He counts them.
That's a good one, but he actually just uses a calculator.
All right, that's a good one. Yeah, because, I mean, what's the point of just pointing at them, but actually just typing in 1 + 1 + 1 + 1.
I don't know. Take it up with Al Roker.
I'm gonna have to meet with Al Roker. That's gonna do it for this Friday edition of the Unwritten Rule. Hopefully, Jack will be back with us on Sunday when we record for that Monday episode in preview for you guys, the Music City Bowl. Hope everyone makes it there safe. If you're not, hopefully you get to watch it at home and enjoy some of that time with your family. Again, Hope everyone had a great Christmas, great start to Hanukkah, and a great Kwanzaa. Whatever else you're celebrating this holiday season before the new year. We thank you so much for listening to us, and we will see you on Monday.